Yes, I've been doing that, and I've written extensive analyses on johnredwood.com, my own website, which is offered to those interested in it all on a free-for-all basis. I've been saying for 20 years or so that our country needs to get away from the import model. That all governments over that period, coalition, Labour and Conservative, have seemed happy to see the decline of our North Sea and onshore oil and gas, to see the decline of our electricity generation, and to make us more and more dependent on interconnectors for electricity and pipeline gas for gas, and then to put in more LNG terminal capacity so that we're even willing to scour world markets at high prices and put compressed gas into huge tankers and then burn an awful lot of fuel getting the gas to Britain, instead of doing the green thing, which would be to develop more of our own gas at home and have it at the end of a relatively short pipeline. I just cannot understand it. And unless you get enough basic energy out of your own local sources, you can't have the available, cheaper, reliable energy you need. And you end up with these spot market crises where if Putin turns the taps down and some American capacity is lost in a hurricane, our business is crucified by having to pay too much.
Yep. The thing that worries me most about this, John, is that it's one of those glaring problems that we clearly should have spotted way back. We didn't. But we are stuck now, here, October 2021, with Christmas round the corner. Is any of that possible to undo? The answer surely is no.
Oh, you've got to start immediately. And I've been trying to get them to do this for many years. But the sooner they start, the less painful it is going to be. I mean, why, for example, have they turned down Shell's investment plan for a new gas facility in the North Sea, which is there and ready to be up and running quite quickly? Wouldn't it be better to let Shell get some more gas out of the North Sea to fill the hole while we're going through the green transition than scouring world markets and competing with China to get LNG chugging across the waves in big tankers? And on electricity, why aren't we putting in some more additional capacity? It's a very managed and regulated market now. The government has to lead because the market is entirely dominated by taxes, subsidies and government rules. And they need to use the capacity market to bring forward more reserve power. Immediately, they need to make sure they don't close any more of the older power stations, although I know they don't want to use coal and gas powered stations. It's very important to have them on standby, because when you get a period when there's very little wind and very little solar energy, as we've just had, you need them, otherwise the lights would go out. And thank goodness we still had 3 old coal power stations standing by, which they could fire up immediately to deal with the problem. But if it left it much longer, they might have destroyed those. So stop destroying things, commission all the new green, clean energy you need, by all means, that we should carry on with. But make sure there's enough energy in the meantime for transition while you're building your nuclear power stations. And remember that you cannot rely on wind completely. If you're going to have a lot of wind, you need a lot of backup. And if you haven't got at the moment battery capacity, hydrogen conversion capacity and hydro capacity, then you are going to need gas power stations or even coal power stations on standby.
If you were in government, John, now, would you, albeit privately, discreetly, say to Boris Johnson, the truth of the matter is you cannot have your COP26 ambitions up in Scotland next month and keep your voters warm and well-fed at Christmas? Pause.
No, I wouldn't say that to him. I mean, what I'm saying to him is said publicly, so you can all read it if you're interested. I'm saying that, yes, by all means, be bold and develop new technologies here that can take us on the green transition. I think hydrogen is a part of the answer to that problem, because it's a way of storing wind power. You can create so-called green hydrogen when the wind is blowing, and then you've got hydrogen, which is a very useful secondary fuel, which you can use in big trucks or in factories or wherever, where it isn't so easy to run everything on electricity. So we need to develop those kind of things. So that would be very exciting. And if we get it right, we'll have an export market for the technologies as well. But in the meantime, I'm saying, remember, we've got to get through the next 4 or 5 winters. Remember, in the next 4 or 5 winters, most people are still going to be heating their homes by gas, even though the government wishes they weren't. You're still going to have glass and chemicals and ceramics and paper industries very dependent upon gas. We haven't got the technology and investment yet to strip all that out. And we're going to need the containers and the food wrapping and all the rest of it so that we can feed ourselves and we can make things at home. So I think what's been desperate about the policy of the first 20 years of this century under three different types of government is that it has allowed us to become more and more import dependent. And I don't see how that is green, because what we're ending up doing is buying things from Germany and China that burn far more coal as a proportion than we do in order to make the things. And we've said, well, we mustn't make them here because it isn't very green to make them. Doesn't make any sense.
Final point. I mean, we're talking about levelling up on the programme as well, John. Do you believe, and I've known you for decades, and I know what makes your political heart beat, as it were, but in the current circumstances, does the Conservative Party have to rediscover an ability to intervene a little more in markets to get us through this mess? You talked about the next 4 winters.
Well, I think it's got to intervene where the government already runs the show. And we have to be realistic. The government does completely run the energy market. It's the government's idea that it wants to move from fossil fuel to clean energy. Quite a lot of people support that. But it is only going to happen by massive government intervention. Some of those interventions have gone too far, causing short-term problems, so they need to be sorted out. On your general debate, my view of levelling up, and I'm very much in favour of levelling up, is that we as Conservatives have an authentic Conservative way of helping deliver it. And I say it's about giving people more opportunities and giving them that support which only government can give them so that they can go on their personal journeys. I don't believe levelling up is spending more public money on a new town hall and a tram for a town and job done. There may need to be better public investment, and I'm not against that for my own constituency. But what it's really about is saying to people in that town or that city, you can aspire, you can get the better training, you can get the better education, you can set up your own business, we'll help you buy your own home. We want you to own some capital and we'll help you get there. It's about ownership, it's about self-employment. And I would ask you to look at 2 cities that interest me at the moment, Aberdeen and Blackpool. Now, Aberdeen is one of the richest cities in the United Kingdom. And it got there, it levelled itself up very early by being allowed to develop an awful lot of oil and gas offshore, and it spawned a lot of good jobs. In the first instance, what happened was what you said, that bright, talented, well-trained people came into Aberdeen from elsewhere, but they decided to live there and form their base there, so they are now Aberdeen residents. And then they, in turn, spawned a lot of demand because they had decent incomes. So then people could set up all sorts of businesses in Aberdeen to service those who were servicing the rigs. And you then had a very prosperous city, one of the most prosperous cities in the country, whereas Blackpool is not allowed to develop the gas, which is apparently abundant quite close to it. And so Blackpool hasn't had anything like that levelling up opportunity. So there isn't that pool of talent and a new industry going into Blackpool. And we need to ask ourselves which of those models was right. And are we prepared to find something else then for Blackpool? Because Blackpool needs something else to provide a great motor so you attract more people in. And as you attract more people in, then a lot of the investment in more expensive homes can go into those areas because they're needed for those people who have the skills to start the thing going. And then that creates a lot of good jobs in construction. And so the thing multiplies. So
Sure.
Look at Aberdeen, see how the energy business did it for Aberdeen, and then say to yourself in each of the other big cities, what's going to do it for them and how can we get it going? And the South East mustn't hog all the housing investment. I think Michael Gove's got this point. Lots of people want to build executive homes in Wokingham. A lot have built executive homes in Wokingham. They're very welcome. But we shouldn't be greedy. We should say quite a lot of those now need to be built somewhere else. And those other places need the equivalent of Wokingham's technology businesses or whatever to provide the jobs.
John, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Aberdeen and Blackpool will be written upon the heart of John Redwood.